And a pencil. Bless you, beloved ones. May I have my dream book back, please? Thank you. It was very significant for me to receive the letter from the professor in Atlanta. For so many years, I have recapitulated my birth in Atlanta, and there have been times of nostalgia when I have longed to be in that red earth and green trees, blue sky, so beautiful in Georgia. The Georgia I knew at birth, and the Georgia I find sometimes when going through there by air. That this book would now be considered as a textbook for Emory University. To me, it is a return of myself in another way, which shows how the inner patterns of life cannot be denied, and how destiny shapes its way for one to remain in his home place by being elsewhere. That was the significance. Whether it is accepted as a textbook to me or not does not matter in spiritual sense, nor physical, but only that word speaking, that there is no separation in soul sediment dust, where we come into this earth and not one particle of what we do is wasted. The futility of thinking that physical life is something we must get over with and must live out in deepest passions and sentience, and thus satisfy the lower atoms or sentient atoms. All of this is fallacy and fantasy, because we are here for a reason. And there's never a time when there's not something developing through consciousness and soul in this most wonderful earth. A beautiful ball of creation, a beautiful harmonics of eternity and the eternals, singing its song on its axis by the divine orchestration of all of the planets and galaxy doors which are flooding to us God's universal, God's presence. It is so wonderful to be in this era, to see the awakening of souls. I thought I would write you a little chart, a little yantra of my own, which I put into a mural of mosaics years ago. And I think I will draw a few little things for you today. It seems to be a yantra day for everybody, so I think I will start off with two of these. First, there are angel presences accompanying our life. They have their own dominion. There are great deva presences watching over our psychology and forming of human behavior. And there are great archangels accompanying spiritual life. We are not aware of these always through the wavelengths of our outer consciousness. But who can say what apprehension and guidance and directive has been from an archangel or from an angel or from a master? It is the skill of an initiate to learn what wavelength he is working with in meditation, in receptivity in dreams, and in his consciousness life. For there are, as the nature forces are shaping us constantly through various processes in the human body and physiognomy, so also are there unseen forces working with us continually. One of the most helpful of the little-known forces and also presences are the angels and the saints. These are especially a part of our forming and shaping and the use of soul powers. When we limit ourselves to just human imagination, we are trying to always blueprint an angel into the likeness of man. But when we are permitting the great archetypal processes of the mind and the soul to work with our consciousness, we are then beginning to, in some comprehensive state, to understand that there are beings different from ourselves. Have we not evidence everywhere in the jungle of the lush and beautiful life of the tropics, and sometimes seeming to us most hideous forms of life, which we fear because we do not know and understand? This is also true in that which is unseen, the mighty forces shaping and forming man's birth to his soul and consciousness. We are greater spiritual students and disciples when we acknowledge that these unseen forces are the living witnesses spoken of, or the cloud of witnesses in the scriptures, and are the cloud spoken of in the Eastern teachings. So, beloved ones, we must consider that we do directly have angels who assist us and who do work with us to protect us and to build a bridge between us and the light of God, not as separateness, but by which we may transport ourselves and go into greater dimensions of consciousness. When I began to receive my books, I was especially aware of these great inner presences and of their accompanying powers. So I'm going to draw you a little chart about certain angels which accompany you in your spiritual life. And this is yourself sitting at the feet of these presences, and you are receiving at that present time, you are entering into the first instruction, and you are experiencing in the spiritual life a state of bliss, because the first part of spiritual life is mystical. Mystical, all feeling. Remember that we have just come out of the Piscean age and moving towards the Aquarian age, in which we are to have greater processes of mind and thought. But we are still in the Pisces feeling stage of moods, of feeling, of desire, which we do not understand. It is on the wavelengths of these great angelic forces that we come to understand our desires as they are reflected back to us and as we are trained through the developing mind and processes of will and willpower. So the first angel we meet is the angel who brings us into the mystical life. And this angel is that one who forms for us the shaping. Now, next we have here an extremely tall angel. And he is our Saturn angel. And on the other side of him is a contesting with the planet Jupiter. And here, this angel is holding a book. And this book is the book of the soul's record. So we enter into bliss first, mystic consciousness, feeling, intuition, all of these harmonics of life, and we want to remain there. We're like a child that's in the womb and does not want to be born, or we're like a child who is getting ready to go to school. He does not want to enter school, does not want the discipline, does not want to leave the home place. So we want to sit continually at the feet of this angel who gives us this expansion of feeling, of moods, of desire, of beauty, and we want to simply swim upon that current. But eventually, the current begins to get rough, and this angel casts us out to another angel. And this angel is the angel then of getting down to serious business in initiation, and that is discipline. And so we find the Jupiter aspect of this angel gives us abundance of creativity, opportunity, tests, trials, All sorts of temptations, all sorts of things are thrown to us through Jupiter, but on the other side, Saturn, part of this angel, is giving us discipline, order, neatness, organization. All of this is part of being at the feet of this angel. And finally, going into the heart of our soul's record and seeing and acknowledging with honesty that we come from the past in which we've had many mistakes in former lives, and that in the present life we are here to rectify some of these, here to use these mistakes as new ideas and new creations. And so suddenly, at the end of this instruction, at the feet of this angel, we enter into initiation and receive a Vajra word, which shocks us into reality as it really is, and in union with truth and only truth. Receiving the Vajra word, or the staff and the rod of the discipline, produces our own willpower, our own decisiveness, our own witnessing, and with honesty, our own actions and reflexes in the spiritual life. So when one comes under the second angel, he then has reached that time of self-examination, honesty, drawing the resources of his soul and of himself, finally realizing the true self as the real self, and the little self as a visitor or a transient sort of apparitional body in which he has now come to this earth to accomplish something with that vehicle, but also to add something to that. Every life we must add something to that which has been in the past life. It is through this honesty, through this high intuition of self-examination that we add to this life along the chain of past life, until suddenly we move beyond this into not having to incarnate so often and eventually move out of the wheel of karma. Now next we have the third and last angel, and we are now standing on our own feet. We are sitting at the feet of this angel, and we are standing and we are in supplication, and this angel is handing to us directly the opening of the third eye and is launching us upon the spiritual life. This is the third angel. Everyone undergoes these three initiations to some degree. To evaluate where you are, to evaluate what you are here for, you must and will meet this soul record. How do you meet it? First, some of us come in with such thin vibrancies between the past life that we bring very often spiritual powers with us, and a knowing of what we are, who we were, and why we are here. Then there are others who come who are closely enmeshed in the egg of the ego and are surrounded by the egotistical shell and thus cannot escape from the little I. One of the exercises in Niscience is to teach you for 1 week to not speak I one single time. Try. It is not easy. In just one conversation, in a short period of 10 minutes, one person, not too recently, said I 24 times. So here we realize that we must get back from this I to find and with honesty face without one iota of fantasy the true self that is overdwelling us. In my research in birth and death, I have found many things which I am putting in my present book and which I have known and taught for years. And one of these is that the ego, or the little ego, does not wholly enter the self to live in the earth, or that is, into consciousness, emotions, and mind, and physical actions until we reach our 14th year. That is when the little ego enters in and takes possession of consciousness. Then I also have seen that the little I gradually begins to die when we are 35. And we begin to then move into that greater self, the true self. And on death, that true self, which has survived from the very beginning of this eternity system, overdwells us and is within us. And I have seen that when we pass from this world, the soul's pulsation at the crown of the head becomes your heartbeat after death. Or that is, the pulsation with the world of God. So, beloved ones, there's so many wonderful things to learn. When you reach the last angel, this angel opens to you this particular place in between the eyebrows, and there the little cranial nerve going into the third eye opens, and you come into dimensional sight beyond ordinary clairvoyance, and into what is called buddhi, and unite with the informing principle through which the distinguishable wisdom is interpreted to you. This is what happens. So this is what I want you to remember, is the third angel, is that angel who is near us and seeking to give us an open and assist us in this particular opening. But also remember, there are other angels who work with you and also assist you in the pattern of life. Now, the next yantra I want to work with is related to etheric polarity physics. In my book also, I have a chapter on polarity physics, which relates to the yin flow between yin and yang in our natures, and how it is so prominent now in nations, in people, and in individuals. We know that the flow of yin and yang, as I stated before in this classroom, that the flow of yang is presently now coming forth in Russia. It is existing now in Japan, but beginning to move towards yin. It's also, yin is becoming yang in China, and we have in France too much yin, which is definitely foreseeing a political condition in which there will be great crisis in that nation. And then all sorts of yin and yang flow presently in the United States of America is in man and woman moving and shifting to bring more compassion in the man and to bring more intelligence and rationality in the woman. All of this is presently working in the present time, and this is what is happening to our society. This flow between yin and yang is presently shifting, producing new sorts of ego out of action. But it is a spiritual duty in all life processes to use the light and work within the light. We realize the answer to these functionings, but we also realize that the master craftsman of the light lives in times of change and transition and maintains his poise and his equilibrium with the knowledge of spiritual light and utilizing it to serve others in the world. Now here we have, I'm going to draw a crude, I'm not as good at circles as Jonathan, but I will draw a crude circle. Now, in the etheric chart, it is different from the astrological chart. The etheric chart is similar to the astrological chart, with the exception that it does not use degrees of aspect by which it estimates and interprets. For instance, in the 10th house, in the 11th house, the 9th house, and the 8th house, and 6, and so forth. We have here one house missing, I imagine. Here we have the house I'm concerned with right here, the 11th house. This is the gate to the masters, the 11th house. Whatever you have in your astrological chart there, this is how you serve the great masters. What is in the 11th house and how the aspects affect each other. Whatever you have in the 10th house relates to what is going to happen to it, how it will appear to the public, how it will be used. Whatever you have in the 8th house will show how you obtain the right to receive from the masters. Whatever you have in the 8th house of your chart shows what right you have, how you earn that right. Whatever you have in your 4th house is how you are related to the great unconscious of all souls of the earth. Whatever you have in the 12th house, if you are capable of going into the aura and reading etheric charts, you have the power to see the Akashic records of past life in the 12th, 10th, 8th, and 4th house. And out of the ether will parade in a panorama fashion the lives you have lived closest to this one, and what one was most apparent, and what one was closer to this one as yielding up fruits of grace. In other words, out of your 8th house will come pictures of how you have used the possession of spiritual powers. In the 10th house will show you if you have had persecution in former life for spiritual powers, or where you have gained recognition for spiritual powers. In the 12th house, you will be shown all of those secret societies you belong to and various aspects of hiding your spiritual knowledge and refusing to bring it to the surface. But more than that also, you will be given knowledge of especially militant lives through the 12th house. Lives in which you have served in war, lives in which you have been in wars, and lives especially which show some sort of confinement which is caused by the human condition rather than your own evils. In other words, once you understand how to tune in to an etheric chart and know how to use the etheric chart and learn how to use also the yin and yang balance, all of these things I've been working with right here in Carmel for 3 years. And I have been doing this to give to the Western world a knowledge of these sciences which have been used in the East. I doubt they have used them in the same manner in which I am receiving them, but for the Western world they have been given to me by the great beings who work with my destiny. Beloved ones, the 12th house will reveal martial arts. The 10th house reveals how you use beautiful grace, and the 8th house is how you earned it, and the 11th house is where the masters are. 4th house is the world's great collective unconscious. So that is a little chart I want to leave with you. Some of you are very good astrologers in this group, and some of you are scientists, because it is a knowledge now to scientifically research everything. This morning I was especially thinking about the human race and the changes that are going over the human race now to develop a new sort of man, and how in the United States that we have had so much of everything, and we have had what is called old-fashioned Orthodox morals today, and we have also had dependence upon traditional religion, and this has sustained us to a certain time. But in the last 2 generations, the great shaping hierarchs are moving on this country. They are moving to produce another sort of man, a collective conscience of a nation, and to formulate a sort of mind that has never existed in the earth. And so we are very crude in spirituality. We are very awkward as disciples. We offend because we are very suggestible. All pioneer people are very suggestible to atmospheres. We are pioneer people, migrating people. And the suggestible atmospheres coming from our fellow men, rise up at the time we enter our spiritual life and contest us. And we must undergo this. Now, I was thinking this morning that God has made it, or the great cause, eternal spirit, has made it so that the species angels continue in their species. You never see in the record of animal reincarnation in my research that a mouse has been a lion. And you never see that a cat has been a giraffe. They are maintained in the species laws under certain great forces working with the devas of our earth and called the species angels. But man is always changing because he has a conscience, he has consciousness, he also has speech, and he has reasoning. He is constantly experimenting. So in the Western continent, we are experimenters. And this we must especially watch that we do not, through abnormal or some sort of distorted curiosity, bruise our soul powers. We must especially now come back to reverence. Reverence not for man-made things beyond that which is praise for man's creation, but reverence for man's, not reverence for anyone being exceptional, because we all have the same innate qualities within us. Some of us are born at 10 in the morning, some born at 10 at night. And we are coming in with different vibrations and different units of measure regarding energy processes of our nature. And we do not all look upon things in the same way, and that is part of the beginning of the mystical life, that we are stubbornly individualistic in a certain way that is harmful for the spiritual life. It is only when we come to understand God as the one, or Spirit as the one, functioning in this earth in order and in perfect harmony with all other things, and with renunciation, place ourselves in this great power of creation and love. This is when we overcome the blind mysticism of floating. Because danger when one is reaching the spiritual life, he is in danger of floating too much, of saying, I will just let fate happen. He does not realize he has created the fate and God has created the destiny. What he wants to do is to make union with destiny. This is his necessity in the spiritual life, to unite with the greater universal cosmos, rather than always be continually experimenting and putting oneself under the microscope of examination, especially with the one attitude which is particularly Western, and that is, what will it give me? What can I do with it? These are the words we should erase entirely from our consciousness, as we should erase the I. In other words, it is going to do to you, beloved ones. You must trust it to do to you. these powers are shaping and forming. You are not helpless in these powers. You are an intelligible unit of God, and you are necessary to this life, and you are a part of unit measure holding together this total universe. And you will never be separate from this because you are eternal. You are eternal and you are divine. But because we are suggestible to persons who are thinking we should be a certain way, and we are permitting them to shape our course rather than that which is in us as being shaping our course. The great spiritual life comes when we pass through the first two angels and we stand awaiting the great atom to enter in between the eyebrows and to give us the holy nimbus of radiance, and therefore in being pass on the darshan light to others. This is the true bliss. The lesser bliss in which we are dependent is that which must die. The greater bliss in which we are living is that which cannot die. So this is where we stand in spiritual life and spiritual evolvement. We are hardy souls. We have incarnated very closely in Egypt. We have very powerful memories from Egypt which formed the occult societies founded by Madame Blavatsky and other teachers in the late 1800s. These were all processes of Egypt. We are also a part of the Chinese chain, which is presently coming into this earth as a dharma and as an ethic which is necessary to us. A few minutes before Jonathan started speaking, I will get personal, someone came up to me and said, "Your feet are so little, they look as if they are bound Chinese." And the answer is, almost all of the Southerners are Chinese reincarnated, especially a certain thread of persons living up and around the northern part of Georgia or Atlanta, in that area. And my total family, my own grandmother wore a size 1.5 shoe. And she passed that on to my daughter, who wears a size 3. So I have big feet for the family because I have had to walk a lot of trails in my own moccasins. And it was not easy. They were sharp stones on that trail, on that path. There was blood left behind them, and tears, and anguish. That is my life story. But my life story also is of joy, the joy of teaching, the joy of giving whatever knowledge I might have to you, that you might live in the glory of a brave courage. We have so much raw material to work with in our nation as disciples. We are presently receiving from the East great books and persons who come to us. They are giving us many ways, and the adaptability of these books into our conscience and into our consciousness is our work of assimilation, so that it is a part of the shaking. If I were a sculptor and I had found a piece of granite and found in it the mold that I would bring forth the figure, and if I knew that there was a sort of acid or a sort of thing to refine that sculpture I must get from another land, I must get from another people, and that I must use it exactly the way they use it, I would send for that material. I would work in every way to get it. And that is what we are doing now in the blessing of the great Buddha stream coming to us, and the Vedanta stream. and the Chinese Dharma, which is coming to us, and some of the old Egyptian ritual, which we still retain. It is in our consciousness. It is our birthright. But we have totally new stuff to build with in a new matrix mold of a nation, and set upon the foundation of those who are Christian under the Christ. All of this is seeking now to form this man to build a new psychology, a philosophy, and ethic. The new psychology presently we are undergoing will introduce altogether different myths in our consciousness. Out of the mouth of God in the back of our skulls is a great center. And there these new myths are forming and shaping now, never seen before in the chain of myths which we receive presently in psychology. These are archetypal products which are coming into the consciousness of man, shaping and forming a new soul pattern for a great civilizations all over the earth. All of this tearing down, the struggle, is all part of it. We must go to the teacher Jesus, to our beloved Jesus, to what is called by some sweet Jesus, by Buddha called the Lord of Kindness, and by men, the Son of Man and the Son of God, the God-man who came to a civilization to incubate it, to prepare it for what is coming forth in science, in mind, in understanding of the physical nature of man. There is no greater art than the art of spiritual learning and application. And that is needed now, vitally, now, in this present time. Groups are nuclei of God, souls seeking to harmonize with one another and work together to produce a certain light, to mediatively to heal others, and to give the overflowing process of their prayers, meditation, healing, therapies, and all of the things which we are using. This is what is coming forth. There will be casualties of experimentation through psychic experimentation, not understanding spiritual law. There will be casualties caused by pride and egotism. But God has plenty of time. He is giving us plenty of time to evolve. But the greatest thing has ever happened to you or to me is that we can sit here and talk about all of the things discussed and to appreciate what is happening now in this vital new surge of spirituality in our continent. To think of ourselves as Americans with any special excellence is error. We are souls who chose to be born in this place, polarized to all that it offers, but polarized to the responsibility. But we are not in any way superior to any nation, nor will we ever be, or are we superior to any person, or will we ever be. All are children and sons of God, and all are coming forth into the light towards perfection. Be ye also perfect, even as my Father in heaven is perfect. That is left to us by Jesus. Let us remember this and strive for the high calling of Christ. God bless you. You are loved. Loved ones, we will have agape, and I want to say a little postscript related to the last weeks. It was more than rewarding. It was a holy joy, and it was a beautiful blessing for me. And in all of the classes we are to have now in the future, let us look forward to being together and sharing what we know. I want to have one good clinic before I leave, so prepare your questions and get ready. And I also, as I said, will have one meeting of naming and other forms of spiritual, laying on hands and so forth. So, beloved ones, thank you for seeing me through all of these weeks of preparation and sharing. God bless you.
please come past the back.